Well, it's official. The Jared Leisek preliminary hearing is on the books. It's scheduled for July 10th, and it shows up now on the court calendar. So let's get into an updated timeline for the Jared Leisek case. Hi everyone, Empowering True Crime, Alex here, and the last time I did an update, a timeline update, it was about 2 months ago. And although in a lot of things, the case has been, chugging along, kind of slowly. But I just realized I was kind of going through my playlist, and quite a few things have happened over the last 2 months. So I figured, let me do an update. And if you watch my last timeline, I'm going to go through some of those things that I talked about in the last timeline and then update as well. So I'm so glad you're here. And if you don't know, Empowering True Crime is the voice for the voiceless. We want to be the empowering voices to support justice and advocacy for victims, survivors, missing persons, and more. So if you like that style of true crime, then please subscribe to my channel. All right, so let's dig right in. And I'm going to go through my little PowerPoint. Oh yeah, and for those of you who aren't aware, Jared Leisek, who is the founder of AWP, has been charged with one charge of child R, so SA, of a child who happens to be his cousin. And this happened approximately 31 years ago when he was approximately 16 or 17, and his cousin was approximately 9 or 10. Okay, well, I just said it, but I'll say it again. In the charges are originally were for January 1st, 1992 and October 1st, 1992. And of course, that is on or about, because this happened so long ago, this is on or about those dates. Jared's cousin, also she's known as Hero in some of the YouTube circles. Jared's cousin alleges that two R incidents happened in 1992. Because his birthday is in September, he would have been 16 or 17. Meanwhile, she would have been 9 or 10 at the time. And in February 2022, there was an email exchange between Jared and his cousin where she refers to him as saying her, and he doesn't deny it. In fact, he apologizes for what went down. He doesn't admit it, but he doesn't deny it. He apologizes to her. He blames his family's history of abuse and Mormonism. And so many of us these emails came out later in November, but many of us saw these emails and thought that that was basically him proving his guilt, even though he didn't actually say he did it. So in August 21st, 2022, so last year, AWP discovers Kiely Rodni's car and her body in Proster Creek Reservoir. Now, the ones who were there were Doug Bishop and Nick Rinn. Nick Rinn actually was the diver. He went down and recovered and saw the car and the body in the car. And so Jared was nowhere to be found. He wasn't physically there. And the case catapulted AWP into the mainstream media spotlight because Kiely Rodni's case was a mainstream case. And although Jared was not present at the search, he participated in several online interviews after the discovery. And so a lot of people were, some people were even confused. Some people thought he was there, but no, he was not present during the search for Kiely Rodni. And also, I just want to say here, there was a lot of controversy that happened with that, the way that they handled that, basically assuming that there was some foul play involved. And so AWP got a lot of heat for that, including Jared. But Jared was also doing a lot of interviews, even though he wasn't physically at the site at the search. So in November 3rd, 2022, there was an indictment and summons issued to Jared for 2 counts of child R in Sanpete County, Utah. Basically, he was there charged for child R of his cousin. And remember, this is a criminal case. So this is not him against his cousin. This is the state bringing charges, criminal charges to Jared, okay? Very important to note, because I know get a lot of people saying, she just wants money. And I was like, the state would never bring charges if they didn't think that there was some proof or some evidence to go through with the charges. Okay, on between the 4th and the 5th of November, so just after it came out that Jared was charged with R, the cousin who I referred to earlier as Hero, and that's how Jared's sister Jessica Leisek was also referring to her, were interviewed. They were both interviewed on several YouTube shows. There was a lot of information that she was sharing, both of them were sharing. And Hero said that she became interested in pressing charges after seeing an online ad about abuse related to the Mormon church. And she repeatedly stated in her interviews that all she wanted is justice. She isn't asking for money. So even I remember one particular interviewer said, hey, how can we help you? Can we, do a GoFundMe? Can we raise money for you? And she said, no, all she wants is justice. She just wants to see this through, and she's not asking for any money. That said, Jessica Leisek proceeded to create $1 million GoFundMe. And this created a lot of controversy because it was so much. And only about $60, $70 were actually raised. So it definitely raised a lot of alarm bells when she created this. People reported it. So around the same time, on November 5th or 6th, Exploring with Nug, who was another dive and search team that Jared collaborated with on several cases, confirmed that Jared told him that his official statement is the emails between him and his cousin. And if you look at the video of Exploring with Nug, he actually says that he was, he was on Jared's side. At the beginning, when he approached it from that standpoint, like, hey, you're my buddy, you're my friend. And when Jared told him that his official statement and the emails were was his official statement is the emails, then he took a step back and said, no, I can't support this. I cannot support this person. And on November 7th through the 9th, the core AWP staff resigns. So Doug Bishop resigned first, Josh resigned, Nick resigned, Devin resigned, and Carson resigned. So the entire core team resigned in those couple of days. And it appears that there's probably some type of a non-disclosure agreements and confidentiality agreements and other things like that, because they were being very elusive in their language. They were saying things like Josh made a metaphor about buying a car and not knowing what was under, something like not knowing what was under the hood when he agreed to sign on to buy the car, all this type of stuff. So I don't know how long those non-disclosures were for and all that, but they're no longer in those, because they're like, Doug Bishop has his own company now called United Search Corps. And so I don't know how long those agreements were for, but these guys are out there doing their thing now. So I believe that they're either no longer under any of those non-disclosures or any of those confidentiality or whatever agreements. But in any case, they're out and doing their own thing now. So on 11/11, the Oregon sheriff personally serves Jared the summons to appear in court on November 30th. So remember, this is actually, I don't know if I mentioned this, the original allegations are in Utah and Jared lives in Oregon. And so a sheriff had to go give the summons to Jared in Oregon, personally deliver the summons to appear in court on November 30th. So on that same day, on 11/11, Jessica's GoFundMe, I don't know if this is the exact date, but I remember looking at screenshots of what she was saying, and she said that it was shut down. People were reporting the GoFundMe, and she says that she returned the money. I remember the last time I had seen it, there was like $60, $70 in there. It was a nominal amount. Considering she was asking for $1 million, $60, $70, a nominal amount. She says she returned the money. And I want to say this point here. She also got a lot of criticism for this, because people were then lumping her and her cousin together and saying, you see, the cousin just wants money. And so that, and even Jessica tried to distance herself from her cousin in the sense of saying that she didn't want that it was her decision to do this, not the cousin. So there was a lot of controversy with this. It's a moot point at this point. Anybody who brings this up, but she was asking for money. It's a moot point. It happened a long time ago. It was created by Jessica, and the GoFundMe was shut down, so no money was made. She says she returned the money, and even if she kept it, it was nominal. It was enough to get gas. Okay, so really nominal. Okay, on November 17th, the attorney for Jared at the time speaks out through the media and says that allegations are false and that they have some evidence that the cousin is lying. So that made me perk up and say, okay, well, what evidence do they have that the cousin is lying, right? Because technically, everyone is innocent until proven guilty legally, even though statistically, only like 4 or 5% of allegations of any crime are false. And on top of that, SA is statistically underreported. So very, very high probability that if there is an accusation of SA or any type of sexual abuse, it's true. It's correct. Okay, so on the 30th of November, a lot happened in November. That was a big month. On the 30th of November, Jared appears in court. However, it was an open court here. It was an open court. There were multiple cases being heard. And because a lot of us saw the public WebEx, including myself, I was attending there. There was a series of disruptions that happened, and the judge canceled the session due to there were disruptions. People were speaking out. I mean, this is a legal proceeding, and people were speaking out. It not during the cases themselves, but during the breaks. It was so childish and immature and just so unprofessional. And I was livid, because there were maybe other people that had to go to court that day, and their court cases were canceled as well, including Jared. So the cousin who's wants her to be, represented herself in court, as the victim in this case, she had to wait as well. The other thing is that a couple of people were live streaming it, even though they were strictly prohibited from live streaming. There was no live streaming, no photos, no audio, no video were allowed to be disseminated. No recordings, no photos, nothing. And people were doing that. So the judge canceled, and they rescheduled it for the next month. So here was when things get interesting. On December 1st, AWP Jared posts a statement on their website of where the AWP donations are going. And meanwhile, Jared seems to be business as usual, and his underwater searches start up again with a new team. And the reason I thought this was really interesting is that he waited until the day after court. And I wonder if something had happened on that court session significant. So if on November 30th, something significant would have happened, I wonder if he would have posted this, the statement of AWP donations and done business as usual. So I do feel like that was a pivotal day. That court being canceled was pivotal for his life and for his business. From his standpoint, of course, he wants business as usual because he makes money from he calls it now docuseries, from his docuseries on the different cases that he covers. All right. So on 12/12 is the rescheduled court hearing. There's a protective order is in place. So he can't reach out to his cousin. And then there were fingerprinting accommodations were made by the end of the month. And a new court hearing was set for December 23rd. So this is where some of us that were covering the case were getting a little bit upset, because we were seeing, he was charged in November and he still hadn't gotten booked. He still hadn't done his fingerprints or actually been arrested, booked for this crime yet. And so there were a lot of accommodations being made. And the 12/23 court hearing was then later also rescheduled again to January. So on January 5th, Jared is finally booked into jail and fingerprinted. So even the judge had said by the end of the month, even that passed, and he ended up doing it the following week on the 5th. And on the 10th of January, one count of child R was removed. And this is because the alleged incident that was on October 1st, 1992, on or about, was occurred in Nevada allegedly. And so only at this point, only one count of child R is, he is the charge at the moment for Jared. So one child R was, charge was dropped, only one remains. And on January 20th, the rescheduled court hearing was heard, and a new hearing date was set to hear oral arguments on dismissing the case. So the defense attorney wanted to go ahead and ask to dismiss the case. The judge agreed to listen to oral arguments on March 8th. And so on March 8th, the court hearing occurred to dismiss the case, and the judge denied the motion to dismiss the case and instead went ahead and said that there was going to be a preliminary hearing set for April 5th. And there were many things that happened in that hearing to dismiss the case. I'm going to go ahead and place a link here. You can watch all of my notes. I took notes. We couldn't record it. We couldn't record audio or video or anything, but we were able to attend. So that was also a WebEx hearing. And so if you want to learn more about that, it was very interesting. In fact, this is actually really interesting because his defense attorney came out looking, in my humble opinion, incompetent. And Jared ends up, and it's here in the timeline, ended up getting a new attorney after that. Because I'm sure that the attorney and even Jared probably thought, yeah, this happened 30 years ago. To me, it felt like they weren't taking it seriously. And perhaps that's part of the reason why the motion to dismiss the case was denied. And so a new preliminary hearing is set. So here's what happens. In a preliminary hearing, you hear evidence and see if there's probable cause for trial. So that's serious. So the case wasn't dismissed, and now you're going to preliminary hearing. On March 31st, Judge Mandy Larson files her order on motion to dismiss. So basically it's a document with her opinion of why she denied the motion to dismiss. And it details the reasons why she denied the motion. And I also did a video on that, and I'm going to post a link here if you want to watch it. That one may have been a short video. And so you can watch it as well, and it goes into detail of that document that she wrote up. It also paralleled to the other video that shows my notes of what happened in the hearing. And then a new hearing was set for, actually the preliminary hearing for April 5th was rescheduled to April 19th. Before we move on, there had been numerous times, apparently, according to Jessica Leisek, that the hearings were rescheduled and the victim was not notified. This is a problem, right? Because if she wants to attend, if she wants to hear, if she wants to be present, I would think that even though she's not a plaintiff, because this is it's the prosecution, the state against Jared Leisek, the defendant. She is not like a party of one of those two parties, but still she's the victim. This case is about her. So it's a problem that she wasn't notified. So that's definitely a criticism on the side of the state, the DA. So we actually found out on the 19th that he got new attorneys, but I know that he at least had to have gotten them changed April 18th because the new attorneys filed a document asking for information. So on the 18th, on or about the 18th, and obviously before he had to have conversations with them, on or about the 18th, Jared officially gets new attorneys, Kara Tangaro and Scott Williams. And I know that it was on that date because, at least on or about that date, or obviously before, but by that date, because the new attorneys requested discovery. So there's a document that, and I also have a link to that where we go over that document, that asking for all the evidence, statements that have been made, just all the different information, data, evidence, information, statements, everything related to this case. Now, here's what's really interesting. That court hearing that was scheduled for the 19th was canceled because the preliminary hearing couldn't happen if he has new attorneys that are completely in the dark. They're out of the loop. So that's why they made this request for discovery. So they wanted to get all the relevant information so that the new attorneys now have the appropriate information to go into the preliminary hearing to be able to defend their client, right? And so on the 19th, but we didn't know all this. This was happening behind the scenes. We didn't know all this until the 19th, when the preliminary hearing with the previous attorney was canceled because he got the new attorneys. And then a scheduling conference was set on May 3rd with the new attorneys. This is where I know for sure Jessica Leisek has said that the victim was not notified of that date change. So we're all going in thinking that there's going to be a preliminary hearing. We have no idea that he's gotten new attorneys and that the court has been canceled. And the victim was not notified of that date change. All right, so here's where things kind of get a little interesting. So on May 3rd was the scheduling conference, and that was between the defense and the prosecution and the judge to schedule when the next hearing will be. It was supposed to be open to the public via WebEx. I tried to attend. Several other people I know that were covering the case tried to attend, and none of us were able to enter. And there was this thing that kept on saying, on the screen that the WebEx meeting hadn't started yet. So I actually spoke to the clerk of courts, and they said that based on something somebody else had written on social media, that it was not public. However, Jessica Leisek said that she was able to attend the meeting. So if she was able to attend the meeting, but the rest of us weren't able to attend the meeting, I believe my theory is that there was a kind of like closed, it was opened but closed, confined to people that were involved in some capacity. Jessica Leisek being a potential witness and the sibling to Jared could attend, right? So that's my theory, because there's no other reason why so many of us weren't able to attend, but she was. And so in that scheduling conference, Scott Williams, who is the defense attorney, requests the matter be scheduled for preliminary hearing, and the prosecution agreed. And the preliminary hearing was set for July 10th, and Judge Larson stated that it would be in person with no WebEx. So we will not be able to attend the WebEx or the preliminary hearing to see what happens. So as of yesterday, the meeting has been entered into the court calendars. I was checking because I know that it's 30 days. You have to, the court calendars get updated 30 days before the event. So I was checking on Friday, I checked over the weekend, and on Monday, which was yesterday, the court calendar was finally updated. And so the next preliminary hearing will be set for July 10th. It doesn't get rescheduled. And the hearing will determine if there's sufficient probable cause and evidence to go to trial. So this is important, right? As I said earlier, especially in a case like this, SA is, and from 30 years ago, the state has to have something. Maybe it's the emails. Maybe there's other witness testimony. I don't know what it is. We don't know what it is until preliminary hearing happens. And even then, some of that information may not be disclosed. So there is something that the state has to have. You can't just go off of he said, she said. So everyone who complains and says that this is a he said, she said, and all the different things, and I have a whole video about busting myths, and I'm gonna link that. I know I got a lot of heat for people who are Jared Leisek supporters But I used a lot of statistics to show that most likely when somebody is accused of SA, any type of sexual abuse, it's happening because statistically it's underreported, and at that, very small number of false reports are made. Actually wanted to share the court calendar. So you see, it says here 9 a.m. in-person hearing, State of Utah versus Jared Leisek, preliminary hearing on July 10th. And here is a court, here's the detail. It says more information, first degree felony, R of a child, on or about January 1st, 1992. And let's see. So there is no WebEx link here on this one. So one more thing I wanted to share. This was provided by SF Investigates. It's the statutes for sex crimes of children, which is what this is. And it says here, the red box here, prison is not mandatory if the sentencing court finds the offender was under 18 at time of offense and could have been adjudicated in juvenile court, but for delayed reporting and filing. So Jared, whatever happens, if he gets found guilty, he will be sentenced as a minor. And in the motion, in the hearing to dismiss the case, the judge reiterated that. She did say that whatever happens, sentencing would be as a minor. It's the only fair thing. If he was under 18, he should be sentenced as a minor, even though it happened 30 years later and he's an adult now. So that's an important point to make, that whatever happens, and it doesn't say here prison is not mandatory. So there could be a very light sentence or a very harsh sentence, but prison is not mandatory. Did I miss anything in the timeline? Let me know in the comments if there's something else. As I said, there was a lot going on in November, and then a little bit in December. December, and then, here or there, things have been trickling by, but not a lot happening in succession. So I figured this was a good time to poke in a timeline to kind of put it all together. Let me know what you think in the comments, and make sure to keep it empowering. So no bullying, trolling, or disrespect. If you like this video, if you learned something today, I'd appreciate if you give it a thumbs up. If you like my style of covering true crime, appreciate if you subscribe to my channel and hit the bell notification to get notified every time I go live, post a video, or post a short. With that, make sure to always keep it empowering, follow your intuition, stay safe, and stay thriving. Bye for now. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the bell button for notifications. Thank you.